Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everybody. Meet me again, Ma'am Eva Deliana Bangun in English course. Today we are going to discuss about noun clause and adjective clause. But to know further about these clauses, let's pay attention to the explanations. Happy learning! Okay, now let's start to discuss about noun clause and adjective clause. There are 4 points that we are going to discuss here. The first is about noun clause. The second is about the use of noun clause. The third is about adjective clause. And the fourth is about the use of adjective clause. Okay, the first is about noun clause. What is noun clause? Noun clause is a dependent clause or subordinate clause that perform the same functions as nouns. So, a noun clause, as it is a dependent clause or subordinate clause, it cannot stand by itself. So, it needs a main clause. A noun clause may perform various nominal functions like as subject, as object, subject complement, object complement, appositive, and sometimes it is function as adjective phrase complement, noun phrase complement, and even prepositional phrase complement. Okay, the next is how do we use noun clause? Pay attention to this of noun clause. How is the noun clause used? Okay, we have so many relative pronouns here or WH quantifiers here or even that clause here. We have how, and then we also have what, why, that, who, which, and whom. These relative pronouns usually used in noun clause as subordinators. Okay, now look at the examples of the noun clause functions as subject. What I want is you. The noun clause is what I want and functions as subject. Why? Because it comes before the verb is. Okay, and it is a noun. What I want is a noun. Okay, and number 2 is as object. As we know that object comes after the verb. Now let's see the example. I believe that she tells the truth. Now here we use a subordinators that or relative pronoun that or that clause. Okay, that she tells the truth is a noun clause function as object. Okay, and then how is the noun clause function as subject complement? Here is the example. This is who I am. This is who I am. Who I am is a subject complement. It completes about the subject this. Okay. And object complement. She asked me to come earlier. To come earlier here is a noun clause that explains about me. Okay, the object. And what about the appositive? Appositive here is to make clear for the subject. The reason why he left me is still understandable. Why he left me is a noun clause, functions as appositive, and it is marked by the comma. Okay, now let's continue the use of noun clause. As adjective phrase complement. It is clear that you don't like me anymore. It is clear that you don't like me anymore. Why this is considered as a noun clause as adjective phrase complement? Because the that clause here or the noun clause here is explained about the adjective clear. Then the next is as noun phrase complement. For example, the result, whether I will pass the test, will be announced in 2 days. Whether I will pass the test will be announced in 2 days is a noun clause. Okay, because it explains about the result. So, noun phrase. The next is as prepositional complement. For example, You don't earn a living from working here. Okay? The noun clause is from working here as the prepositional complement for the main clause you don't earn a living. And then the next is as object complement. She asked me to come earlier. She asked me to come earlier. The noun clause is to come earlier as object complement because it defines or explains about the object me. And the last is as accusative. The reason why he left me is still understandable. Okay, this is what we have already discussed in previous examples. Okay, the next is, don't you know that noun clauses divided into 7 nominal categories? The first one is declarative subordinate clauses. For example, that he lied to me makes me upset. Okay, the noun clause is that he lied to me. The second is interrogative subordinate clauses. For example, I don't know who you are. Who you are is a noun clause. Okay, and number 3 as exclamative subordinate clauses. I feel what a wonderful life I spent with him. The noun clause. Which one is the noun clause? The noun clause is what a wonderful life. Function as exclamative subordinate clauses. And then 2 infinitive clauses. For example, he's willing to stay at home is understandable. The noun clause is to stay at home, 2 infinitive. And the next is in participle clauses, or we can say as present participle clauses. I enjoy listening to music in the morning. Okay, the noun clause is listening to music in the morning because this is in participle or present participle. Number 6 is bare infinitive clauses. Bare infinitive is infinitive without to. She helps her mom cook in the kitchen. So the noun clause is cook in the kitchen. Here, cook is not the verb, but as a noun. Okay, the activity of cooking. Number 7 is passive participle clauses. For example, my dad had the car repaired this morning. Okay, maybe we are familiar with the concept of causative, have and get. And okay, now let's practice because practice makes perfect. All right, identify the noun clause and their functions. Okay, I hope you can answer this practice. Number 1, I know what you did last summer. Okay, this is a title of a movie a long time ago. Yeah, which one is the noun clause? Yeah, good. The noun clause is what you did last summer and it is function as object. Good. It is what number 2. Okay. Number 2 is a fact that the pandemic has changed the world. It is a fact. Which one is the noun clause? The noun clause is good. That the pandemic has changed the world. Yeah. And what about its function? Yes, good. The function is as object complement because it explains about the fact here. Very good, excellent. And the last one, how she answers the questions surprised me much. Which one is the noun clause? Good. The noun clause is how she answers the questions and it is function as subject. Yes, good. All right, good job. Okay, now let's come to the third topic. It is about adjective clause. What is adjective clause? Adjective clause are dependent clause, just the same as noun clause, dependent clause, that perform the same functions as adjective. So that's the difference between noun clause and adjective clause. If a noun clause the position is as noun, but the adjective functions as adjective. The function of adjective clause are restricted to noun phrase post modifiers. Yeah, so it modifies the noun. An adjective clause may be a finite or non-finite subordinate clause. Okay, and then how do you use the adjective clause? The first is finite adjective clause, but before we should understand about restrictive modifications and non-restrictive modifications. Just pay attention to the examples given. For the first one, restrictive modifications, and usually it is signed by with no comma, so we don't have to put comma here. For example, the man is a doctor. This is a main clause, or this is a sentence. We don't know yet which man is a doctor. So there will be a question because this is not unclear. This is not clear which man is a doctor. And then we should or we need to put an adjective clause here to modify, to define the man. Okay. So the sentence, the man who lives next door is a doctor. The man who lives next door is a doctor. Okay, number two, non-restrictive modifications. And usually it is signed with comma. For example, Suaida, who lives in Singapore, is my sister. We need to put comma here. Why? Because who lives in Singapore is a non-restrictive modification. It is optional whether we can put this one or not. But it doesn't change the meaning. Suaida is my sister is okay. It's clear. Suaida who lives in Singapore is my sister. It is okay. So the adjective clause here, if it is non-restrictive modifications, it is extra informations, functions as extra informations, and this is optional. Next, finite adjective clause. It is subordinate clause introduced by the relative pronoun who, whom, whose, which, and that. So we need to put relative pronoun here. The relative pronouns that usually used in adjective clause is whom, that, who, which, whom, and whose. Okay, that, who, and which is functions usually as subject, and then whom functions as object, and then whose it is usually possessive. Now let's see the examples. Okay, number one, students who do not obey the rules will get punishment. From the sentence, we can identify the adjective clause. It is who do not obey the rules is the adjective clause, and it modifies the students, and it is as subject because students is as subject. Number two, he is the man whom I talk about. Okay, and the adjective clause is whom I talk about because it modifies the man, and the man is the object. Number three, the car which is parked in front of my house is Cindy's car. The adjective clause is which is parked in front of my house. It modifies the subject, the car. Okay, and the car is a thing, so we need to use which. Number four, the woman whose car is crashed. The adjective clause is whose car is crashed, and it modifies the woman's, the possessive. Okay, yang mobilnya, and then the function is as possessive. The next is the cat that eats the fish is hiding under your bed. Okay, the adjective clause is that eats the fish, and then it is modifying the cat, the subject. Okay, so it is as subject. Okay, this is about non-finite adjective clause. In non-finite adjective clause, there are 3 points that we can consider here. The first is adjectival imparticiple subordinate clause or adjectival present participle subordinate clause. For example, the boy standing at the corner is my boyfriend. Yeah. So the adjective clause is standing at the corner. Okay, number 2 is adjective passive participle subordinate clause. So it is a passive. Okay, it corresponds to a relative pronoun as subject. For example, the book written by Eva was sold out. So the adjective clause here is written by Eva. Number 3, adjectival to infinitive clauses. Okay? So the adjective used to infinitive. For example, the first thing to do is to list the things to buy. The student to finish the exercise will be given a reward. So this is a to infinitive clauses as adjective. Okay, the next is verbless adjective clause. It means that the adjective clause doesn't have any verb. Okay, this happens when the relative pronoun and the verb in the subordinate clause that post modifies a noun phrase are ellipses. For example, I like a room full of colors. The adjective clause here is full of colors. Okay, but full of colors here doesn't contain any verb, but it is adjective clause. It modifies the room. The verbless clause is adjective clause that modifies the noun, in this case, a room. It can be said as that is full of colors. So if we say a complete sentence will be I like a room that is full of colors, and it is acceptable to omit the that is. The next is conclusion. What we are going to conclude here is about the difference between noun clause and adjective clause. Okay, adjective clause do not perform a syntactic function within a sentence like noun clause have. The syntactic function of adjective clause is in phrase level. Okay, an adjective clause is a part of noun phrase, and a noun clause is a part of a sentence. Can you get the meaning? Okay, good. All right, that's the end of our lesson today. Thank you. Okay, that's all for today for the explanations of noun clause and adjective clause. I hope you can enjoy the learning, you can understand the materials, and don't forget to stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.